Hello there, it's Lisa Starr, and I'm here with another episode of StarrCast, where we speak to inspiring folks in the wellness world. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Elena Bogacheva, who is coming from Moscow, the wonders of Zoom. And Elena is currently the founder and president of two organizations, the Spa and Wellness International Congress, which is Russia's largest spa and wellness congress, and Spa and Wellness International Council, where she is a consultant. So, welcome, Elena.
Hello, everybody. Great to hear you despite the distances and the very difficult times today when we very seldom see or talk to each other.
That's for
Uh,
sure. I mean, it's been a crazy year. How's it been in Russia? How has the spa business been?
Spa business is reviving and managing it a bit because we're not locked down for long. It was only 2 weeks for big cities like Moscow. It came later for smaller towns and cities, and now I think that throughout Russia, all the industry is operating without restrictions. We do have some sanitary and epidemic restrictions, like special robes for therapists, like obligatory masks and
Mm,
sanitizers, and no coffees and no teas,
mhm,
etc. But I think the business is managing. We have many small businesses closed down,
mm,
mainly within larger networks like Thai salons, small beauty
mhm,
salons, and spas. And we also have I would say quite a lot of new projects and interests.
mhm.
We've recently held our Congress, our seventh Congress in Moscow, and we had investors from different parts of Russia who are thinking about opening spa hotels, wellness hotels, integrative medicine centers. And by the way, some of our spas, some day spas, have been transformed into integrative medical
Mm,
centers
mhm.
because they all operated under medical licenses. It was not a
Right.
problem for that.
Yeah.
They just re-engineered their menus a bit. They changed the slogans, they
Mhm.
changed the boards, the billboards, and it works.
That's amazing. That's very similar to the situation in the States as far as opening. Most spas are open and operating without issue. It's just certain states are a little slow. But we'll come back to that, Elena. I want to flash backwards in your life to, how did you get to where you are now? Did you ever think when you were a young woman growing up that you would be working in this field today?
Now that you ask a question, I start posing myself, what did I dream of when I was a little
Hmm.
child? And it was absolutely becoming a doctor.
Oh.
And there were no doctors in the family. My father was a diplomat, my mother was a teacher of Russian and literature, and there was no one to help me with the promoting the idea. But I was always dreaming of becoming a doctor. And maybe it was my father's influence that I first started my college studies as a
Mm.
an interpreter, and a teacher of English and French.
Well, that explains why you're so good at languages.
So first it was languages. My professional career started with languages, and I also went into postgraduate studies of psycholinguistics. And that's where I came across psychological research and psychological literature, and I became interested in psychology. And my second degree was in social psychology. So it was a postgraduate course shortly after my first. I was only 21 when I graduated from college.
Mm.
So my postgraduate course was in social psychology.
Mhm.
And then there was quite a long period when I worked as a teacher of English at one of Moscow universities. And then we went to Morocco with my husband, who was a diplomat. He
Ah.
went to work in the embassy, and I came there, and Russian ladies in our embassies abroad at that time, it was Soviet period, yeah, it was
Mm.
end of Soviet period.
Mhm.
They were not allowed to do a lot. They could not work, they could
Mm.
not be employed, they could not just roam in the city. Everything was restricted and controlled. So
Were you
I
in
did,
Casablanca?
no, it was Rabat.
in
The
Rabat,
embassy
right?
was in
Okay,
Rabat. There was a
sure.
consulate in Casablanca. And I was, at that time, I was about 30, and I decided I was in a way interested in beauty therapies and cosmetologies because I could read in Russian, in English and French. And there were a lot of French magazines like Beauté Santé in Morocco. I started reading them just for myself, and I decided to practice. I organized sort of sessions, beauty sessions for Russian women who could not afford going to a beauty therapist in the city because it was pretty expensive and the salaries were not so large. So I organized sort of salon. Uh,
So it was a salon of the kind where you talk about literature, or did you
yeah,
actually do beauty
no,
treatments, or a little of both?
it was a beauty. It was a beauty parlor for my friends, for girls. We did some knitting and embroidery and put applied masks. It was sort of a mini circle.
That's so
And then,
fun.
the ambassador or ambassador's wife, she promoted me as a leader of a women's community, a Russian women's community within the embassy.
Well,
So
you're always a natural born leader,
yeah,
Elena. That's what happens.
I was quite young, but I organized different sessions and evenings and parties, and I made some lectures, mini lectures for Russian women who could not read in foreign languages
Hmm.
about beauty products. They were not accessible to them, and I was teaching them. And then at that time, I suddenly had a dream. I wanted. Russian women to have a sort of club in Moscow. I thought when I come back, I would organize a club, a women's club where we can get together, like here in the embassy, discuss things that are well interesting for women, apply masks, etc.
Hmm.
And
And then what happened?
and then when I came to Moscow, it was perestroika period.
Uh-huh.
My husband went into business. He stopped working for the state. He went into business. He had some money, and I was a mom of my twins at that
Hmm.
time. I didn't work. I didn't go to work. And he said, think of something that you would do for yourself, some small business. I will help you with finance. You just get an idea. And I started with the idea of a spa because
Mm.
we started traveling. I got to know the Sanctuary Spa in London. I was a
Hmm.
fan of that spa and a
Hmm.
frequent visitor. And I decided to organize and to make up something like that. So my first idea was a women's spa, women only spa in Moscow. We acquired a building, a small building, and I started equipping the facility, making all sort of refurbishing. It was, in fact, a reconstruction of an old 18th century building, which took me 3 to 4 years
Wow.
before I could realize my project.
So,
And then
Elena, was this in the 80s?
it was in the 90s.
In the
It was,
90s. So
I
you
started,
had a women only spa well before that was a trend.
no, no, never, never, no spa at all. It was the first spa in Russia. It
Wow.
was the first women's club in Russia, in fact, maybe after the revolution. And when I realized this idea and project, which I had a lot of ideas to implement, I had a designer and architect to work for my project. She was Irish, Maria Kiernan. Maybe you
Oh,
remember
I
her.
know Maria, sure.
Yeah, Maria was my architect and designer for this project. And shortly before opening it, I got a letter from her where she was writing. It was 1998.
Hmm.
She was writing, Elena, the facility that you have made is called now in our countries a wellness club. It is not a spa because I had some fitness area, I had a spa cafe, I had a lounge with a piano and a library. And she
Was
said,
it a members club, or
yeah,
could the
members
public
only,
come? You had to have
members
members
only,
only.
members
So,
only.
so was it hard to attract members at first?
Not really, because it took me 4 years to implement all the ideas to realize the project, and during that long term period, I I was mixing with people from foreign embassies, with expats in Moscow, with the wives of new Russian businessmen. I mean, people who could afford, who could understand my idea, and who could be members. So
Mm-hmm.
by the time I opened, and the opening was delayed and delayed and delayed
Uh,
because of the supplies, because of the delayed supplies. And then we had a financial crisis in 1998, a terrible financial crisis when my husband lost almost all his money,
oh,
and the club had not yet been completed.
bad
We had to
timing.
obtain licenses. We had to invest in advertising. We had to hire staff and to pay during the first period when we had no income. So luckily, I did have already members by that time who were ready to pay, for membership. My membership card cost as much as any uh, famous fitness club in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
And we had no fitness, and we had no free equipment. So I had to make up this card, a package that was worth it.
Sure.
So, alongside with some sample testing treatments, alongside with some free drinks or free sessions with a psychotherapist or free club evenings, I made something that was unique. I think in London some years ago, I spoke about this option for club members. It was a personal, individual digest.
Hmm.
Every club member would fill in some questionnaires according to which we formed a profile of
Hmm.
interests and both professional and personal. And by the day when the client would arrive, by the day or date of appointment, a special staff member in my club would make up a file, would make up a package for that client, personal package with articles on those topics that were of interest to this particular client.
My goodness, that's interesting.
So after the first year, we had some clients who had invested a lot in treatments, who were really active spa goers, spa adepts. They would buy and buy and buy, and the cost of the cost that they paid us was 5-6 times more than the price of the club card. So my manager, and by the way, my manager was Belgian.
Uh-huh.
He was from Belgium. He was not Russian, because I thought that no manager in Russia knows
Knows
how
what to
to
do, right?
deal with this
So
new
how did you find a Belgian to run it?
through a French recruitment company.
Interesting.
I had 4 candidates, one from the United States, 3 were girls, and one was a gentleman. And I employed the gentleman.
You did in a
Yeah,
women's only club.
yeah, Pascal
Did you
van
do that on
Doorn.
purpose?
Yeah, he was a typical metrosexual. He knew
Uh-huh.
how to deal with ladies. He knew how to teach them. He knew how to teach the staff. And he was very well organized, very well disciplined. So it was a perfect combination.
That's
And
funny.
so when we offered some of our clients, VIP clients, not to pay for their club membership, but just come on a regular basis and go on buying our treatments, one of the ladies, who was, by the way, wife of a minister, she said, "What about my personal digest? Would I
Mhm.
receive that?" So I realized that was a value.
The
That was
word had
a
been
value.
out.
Yeah. And in general, club membership was a value for maybe not thousands, but for hundreds of my clients. So that was the beginning of my career inspiring the wellness industry. And some years later, I was thinking of moving to the United States. As you know, my kids went to study there.
Mhm.
And I decided to quit the business, to sell the business and just leave. And I did that. But when I came back, uh, when I decided that, well, my home place is still better for me, uh, I was being invited to different forums and conferences to speak about my business, to
Mhm.
teach professionals, to
To
teach them,
share the wisdom that you
to share
had.
wisdom, to share experience, to consult some projects, because consultancy was something new to Russian business at that time in general, and in this very small field, first and foremost. And in 2006, I started my consultancy company. And I started creating ideas and concepts for other people's projects. So,
Okay.
which means that I have been for 14 years in this consultancy business. I've been consultant to many businesses, uh, mostly at the stage of creating an idea or concept,
Hmm. Right.
not
The strategic part, the visionary
yeah.
part.
Later, I partnered with an architectural company, and we started creating the projects where I was the initial stage, and they would undertake it later. And then, as a teacher, as a professional teacher, my first profession is teaching. So then I started creating educational courses for Russian spa therapists, spa
Hmm.
managers, both online and offline. I would very often be invited to some spas and hotels and salons in different cities of Russia to train staff, to train them in the field of ethics, psychology of
Hmm.
communication, psychology of sales, active sales, not massage technologies, of course,
Sure.
but service skills mainly.
I'm sure you were the only person doing this, right, at that time in
At
Russia.
the time, yeah, that's true. I think maybe until 2010, when
Hmm.
younger people who used to be my students would came into stage and create their own companies, their training centers. Well, for the last 10 years, there have been more and more people involved in the same business as mine.
So does the degree for a therapist training in Russia follow the European model of a several years at an academy and you get a certification? Is that how it works there?
Do you mean therapists?
Yes.
Yeah. A spa therapist in Russia, according to our standards, has to have a higher medical education. It has to be a minimum a nurse, but preferably it has to be a doctor's degree, first and foremost, and then
Wow.
some qualification in spa. Because the reason is that our spa treatments, like massage, like beauty treatments, they are considered medical services in Russia since
Hmm.
2013. It had not been the case before that, but since 2013, it's a must.
I can remember hiring estheticians 30 years ago, and we always knew if they were from Russia, they would have much better training and background than some of the
That's
other
true.
countries.
It presents certain difficulties for hotel spas, which are sometimes international operators who bring Balinese or Thai
Hmm.
therapists, and they have to be qualified. They have their qualification has to be confirmed, and then if they want to work with massages, they have to obtain a medical license. This is how it works in Russia. It's not a licensed therapist; it's a licensed spa that has to employ a certain qualification of therapists.
Hmm.
The
So I'm
first,
sure that this kind of training for therapists didn't involve sales or service because, especially in a medical background, they don't generally cover that.
absolutely, even worse than that, people coming from classical medicine, from medical institutions, they didn't know how to deal with clients. They could not understand a word client. They would call them patients.
Mm, sure.
They would be very directive, very
Hmm.
imposing, very strict. They would never look up at them. They would never smile. They
Mm.
would say, okay, patient, this and that, come in, get undressed, go to the coach. And we had to change this mentality. It was
That's
very
a very
difficult.
different model than what we
Yeah,
have
yeah,
today.
yeah.
So, how were you able to take that sort of framework of training and show them how it was important to see the guest and to relate to the guest? That was something they had never learned.
First, it was not an offer, it was a reply to demand. For example, a new type of institution like hotel spa or wellness center, where where clients are those who travel a lot. They know the standards of service. They come and they face something different that they would not like to pay for.
Mhm.
Inattentive massage therapists, very strict and very um, directional medical staff, and there would be no repeated visits. There would
Of
be
course, because
no
that's
profit.
not enjoyable.
So the owners and managers, they would turn to consultants asking why. What is wrong with us? Is it a wrong bath? or is it a wrong shower, or is it a wrong cosmetic product? And then I started organizing conferences. In 2010, I created Spa and Wellness International Council.
Mm-hmm.
We first prepared and adopted national standards for spa, terms and definitions, to introduce a new language,
Very smart to
so that
standardize it.
so that medical staff and people from hairdressers and beauty industry would understand what it's all about. And then I started organizing multidisciplinary conferences for beauty and spa therapists,
Mm-hmm.
for medical doctors and massage therapists, to show them the service is something that you are not taught at colleges or medical schools. It's something different. It's here. It's your mentality. It's your attitude. And this has to be trained if you want your therapies and if you want your treatments to be sold and work for your clients.
For sure, right? It's the missing piece. I mean,
Yeah.
people, as you were saying, that medical model is not enjoyable to just go and have a treatment and the person doesn't speak to you. You want guests to come back, of course.
In 2007, I wrote a book, Spa Mania, which became popular among, it was first book in Russian about spa at all. And it became very popular among owners and managers. And there was a chapter devoted to service and ethics. So that's how I sort of became famous.
Mm-hmm.
And they started writing to me and inviting me to train. And in 2014, we held our first Spa and Wellness International Congress in Moscow. This year, it would be the eighth. And at the same time, I issued the first volume of Spa and Wellness Encyclopedia. It was
Goodness.
the first Russian comprehensive study of spa and wellness. Then in 2015 came the second volume for spa therapists about technologies and methods. And then came the third volume, which is called Secrets of Perfect Service.
Wow.
And
Elena,
so
we can see why you are the mother of spa in Russia. You seem to have organized
sometimes
the entire country.
sometimes they call me like that, and I feel very old when I hear that from my students or well some colleagues. But that's how it was. In fact, yeah, this is the fact.
I just love listening to that story as you are so good with language clearly. And yet here you are in a field that you really never envisioned being in because you were creative. You know, when you were in Morocco and you were thinking, what can I do with myself? You combined the things that you knew into something that was not really done yet. So well done for your entrepreneurship.
I think you're right talking about rather creativeness than entrepreneurship. I don't consider myself a proper businesswoman. If you ask me for a recipe how to or formula how to earn money, I would never tell you. Seriously, I
Really?
never went to a business school. I never followed any rules of business. It's mostly about my creativeness. I like to initiate something. I like to create something new. For example, now I have launched a course of alternative medicine, which is an online course for therapists, alternative and complementary medicine. It's a large online course of 12 modules, 12 blocks, and it's really an online encyclopedia for complementary and alternative medicine. And then I followed up with the course of dream interpretation.
No.
As a psychologist, I never leave that sphere. I practice as a counselor. I have some clients, and I have a group for dream interpretation. So now I started an educational course for well for anyone who wants to understand their subconscious through dreams, through well
And
analyzing.
that's online as well.
Yeah, I had a group offline before epidemics.
Mm.
We had a group and we go on meeting with this group, but now it's an online course.
Well, I would love to join it, but I suspect you're speaking in Russian, which
It's a
might be a
Russian course
challenge for
now, but
me.
maybe one day, maybe when I cannot invent anything new, maybe I will start
Oh, I don't
translating.
see that day coming when you can't invent something new. So let's flash forward to today. What do you think will be the spa situation in Russia when the pandemic settles down? Do you expect it to change at all? Do you still have banyas and sort of that old school Russian? How do you see it all evolving, Elena?
I think we are already witnessing a shift of all this segment of our industry that was considered non-medical, like day spas and salons and uh, even aesthetic medicine
Mhm,
centers.
mhm,
They're all looking into wellness, into integrative wellness, into wellness as prevention of infections, post effects of any diseases like we're facing now with this COVID. Um, they're all thinking now of transforming into really integrative medical centers. Even the word spa in Russia is not so popular.
mhm,
I'm now consulting a project in the west, in the very west of Russia. Actually, it's the Baltic region of
mhm.
Russia. And they asked me when we started working on a concept, they asked me to avoid the word spa.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we would call it a wellness center, of course, so maybe a center of integrative health. So these terms, these words are more in demand now among investors
Do
because
you
they,
think will you have massages and facials? You just
yes,
don't
yes,
use that spa
all spa
word.
treatments, I think that all spa treatments will remain as they are, maybe with some restrictions like um, I think that our regulatory authorities will now work on the requirements to spaces, to creating spaces.
Mhm,
For example, now we can make a massage therapy room starting from 10 square meters.
mhm.
I don't know the American system very
That's
well.
about 100 square feet in
Yeah.
American, 110.
Now I think it will be more. In
Mhm,
my new projects, we are now already making rooms of 15 to 20 square meters minimum, for anything, even if it's makeup therapy room or manicure or pedicure.
so this is for distancing? I mean, what's the reason for the
This is
extra
for
space?
creating healthier spaces that can
Uh-huh.
be well aerated, well ventilated, well conditioned, that can, yeah, and for distances as well.
Mhm. Well, Russia's a big country. You have a lot of room to spread out, so you can make your buildings
I
large.
remember one of my first experiences as client in Europe. I would not name a spa because I love it, and it's a good one. But there were very many treatment rooms, very because
Mhm,
the client flow was so heavy. It was a non-stop one, and I was on a talgo treatment. It was a talgo
mhm.
wrap, and the therapist, she was well, she was plump, let's say, not to say more. And the distance between herself and and the massage table and the wall was zero. In
Ah,
fact, she was squeezing in, and when
oh,
she was manipulating with my body, the massage table was moving, and I didn't feel very secure. I didn't
no.
feel safe. In the beginning, I think somewhere maybe in 2003 or 5 in Russia, they changed the regulations and 10 square meters for beauty therapies became 12.
A little bit more room to breathe.
Yeah. So as spa therapies for body, some body treatments, not massages, they are considered medical. Some massages like sports massage or foot massage, they can be performed in smaller space. But now I think
Mhm.
the space will be bigger.
Right.
It means that centers and projects and investors would require more space in general.
Yes, more room
If
and which
before
will
we would,
increase the cost of building
yeah,
it out.
we would speak before of a minimum for a day spa of 200 square meters, where you could have a little of everything still.
Yes.
My wellness club, by the way, my women's wellness club with a music lounge, with a library, with a doctor's room, with a psychotherapist room, with a gym was 550 square meters.
Wow.
All of it.
That's a lot. That's about 6,000 square feet. So you had a
Yeah.
lot in there. It reminds me of the place that we went to, Gazeli in Baku. That was
Yeah,
just
the
amazing.
Gazelle is a bigger space. Yeah, but my architect, as I told you, was Maria Kiernan. She's
Mhm.
brilliant. She's brilliant at creating spaces where you have minimum, but you can implement a lot. So she managed to create a space that where you didn't feel squeezed or tight,
That's
and
that's the artistry of architecture,
yeah,
right? Using
yeah,
the space so well. Well,
interior
Elena, we
and design.
can't wait to see what you create next because you are a creative force for sure. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'd like to ask you in closing two questions. One is, it sounds like you have very little time off, but what do you like to do when you have some free time?
I have started 3 books, non-professional, just books. Some of them are autobiographical.
Hmm.
Some of them tend to be more on psychology.
Hmm.
I would like to write them. I love singing, and I used to sing when I was in Morocco in our embassy um, receptions and evenings and parties. I would always sing. I would like to have some vocal training, some lessons maybe. I'd love to have more time for my kids and family, of course.
Yes, of course, we all need more time. And how
Yeah.
about this? What is your favorite food to eat?
Oh, it's a tricky question because until recently, I would say pasta, all sorts of pasta and Italian food in general. But
Sure.
now I'm gluten free, unfortunately.
Ah,
I hate gluten free pasta. So now my favorite food is salads. I've
salads.
always, yeah, I've always eaten a lot of fruit and vegetable. I'm not vegetarian. I love a steak.
Mhm,
I like poultry. I love fish and seafood,
mhm.
but I cannot live a day without a bowl of salad. And well, it used to be bread and pasta. No, no
Yes,
more.
and now we get into the healthy lifestyle and it's more vegetables and salad. So
Yeah,
I'm on the same page as you.
but
Well,
it's not
Elena
because of my.
Bogacheva, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a delight to have you, and I hope that your story inspires some others who would like to move forward in spa and wellness.
Thank you for inviting me. Hope to see you soon somewhere in Europe or US.
Me too. We shall see. Bye bye.
Bye bye.